Right. Today I have online Ming Leung from the Manildra Group and Roy Rogers from Flagstaff. Welcome to both these gents to our Breakfast Bite series, which we've introduced to keep engagement between local businesses and so on, but we're doing it in a slightly different format and providing a story each fortnight. A little bit of background to this story is that two local business leaders, developed an innovative solution to a problem that grew out of the early days of COVID. Morning, Ming. You are the site manager of the Manildra operation at Bhama Dairy. Can you tell me what that involves and what is the range of products produced and where some of your markets are, and probably a little bit of a comment of what's happening in the last week of getting things into Melbourne?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I'll just give you a quick background on the Manildra site here at Bhama Dairy, for those of you that are unfamiliar. So we're a large processor of wheat. So it takes over 1 million tonnes of wheat per annum to run this factory, and we mill that wheat into flour, and then we separate the different components of the flour. So the protein being gluten going into the baking industry predominantly, and also into the feed industries. About 70% of the flour is starch or carbohydrate, and we use that to make 3 different product groups: starch for the paper and food industries, glucose for confectionery, and ethanol, which we're obviously well known for. And there's some byproducts that end up in the stock feed into the feed industry. I guess in the early days or through the COVID crisis, there was a huge demand for ethanol. John Lamont, who's on, was a big part of that as well in the hand sanitizer space. The feedback about things getting to Melbourne, so our trucks are still flowing through to Victoria, so I don't think there's been any major problems there. Greg?
No, I've been talking to the Sydney office of Manildra, and there's, they move about 600 tonnes a day into Melbourne, and half of that comes out of Bhama Dairy. And I've been liaising with the Sydney office just to make sure that all the protocols were right, and that the government was aware that it wasn't just Sydney to Melbourne traffic, there was other region to region traffic as well. So that's been interesting. So just on the transport, transport linkages vital to Manildra, both road and rail. Can you give our audience some examples of the frequency of trains and tonnages and road shipments in and out of the plant, and which routes they travel?
So our raw materials, which is predominantly wheat and a bit of flour, comes in on the train in bulk wagons. And our export containers, which we export about 400 containers a week out of this site via Port Botany, come in and out by train. So we have 17 train paths a week. For example, a wheat train might be 2,500 tonnes, and we get one of those every day. Trucks, there'd be 60 plus semi-trailer B-double type trucks coming in and out of the place. Ethanol, glucose, domestic starch, they're the typical products that we're carrying on those trucks, both going north and south, up into Sydney and down into Melbourne and up to Queensland as well.
All right. So when COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, did Manildra have a plan? What were some of the issues that you faced as a manager of a food operation?
So operationally, we're obviously allowed to continue operating during the lockdown. Ethanol being one of the key ingredients of Sanitizer, is highly sought after, and to to fight the pandemic, we started to make a little bit of our own, and John Lamont helped us out with a few ingredients for our own use, and I guess like John, we're getting requests from the community to for hand sanitizer from all sorts of organisations and businesses, from schools and emergency services and clubs and restaurants that were still open at the time. So that's how we started, Greg, and we were just donating 10 and 20 litres out to the community at that time.
Mm. So some of those first requests come, from the CEO of the Shoalhaven Hospital on behalf of the Illawarra Retirement Trust. He got a phone call in and needed some sanitizer, so did Nowra High School, and so you saw then that there was a community need. So what happened next?
So I found myself every day managing requests and getting small amounts of product out, and I knew this was going to keep going for some time. I said, this is unsustainable. So I had a word to Greg and said, if we place some 1,000-litre IBCs out in the community, then it would be a good way to get some product out to some of particularly the not-for-profits, so the government agencies and the not-for-profits, some place that they could go which wasn't coming to the factory to pick up a bit of product. So we firstly set up some at the Bhama Dairy Bowling Club, and then Roy came on board at Flagstaff, and we're able to supply thousands of litres of product out to the community.
I've just seen Grant ask a question. What's actually the ingredients of hand sanitizer?
So I guess one of the John's just answered there. One of the things that happened at the start of the pandemic is that the government kind of approved the use of a very simple formulation, which is ethanol, glycerin, peroxide and water, which is a formulation sort of issued by the World Health Organization. And so that made it quite easy for people like us, where John's a bit more sophisticated in making gels with fragrances and stuff, but people with a bit of ethanol were able to mix up this WHO recipe and get it out there.
Righto. So Roy, you manage the Flagstaff Group, both in Nowra and at Unadera. How were you brought into the distribution network? How did you set up, and who were your customers?
I guess originally it was obviously yourself and Ming approached us to do some bottling, because obviously the demand was picking up, and we've got lots of people, and we love doing that type of job, decanting, bottling. So Ming approached us, Tanya Ray, who manages our Shoalhaven operations, and asked if we could decant. It started off as 20-litre pails, and then it moved to IBCs to provide a large number of spray bottles and smaller quantities out into the community. And so we were able to cope with that pretty easily. And with conversations with Ming, I said, look, we're happy to take this even further if you need to. And then yourself and Ming were looking at widening the network to distribute the product. And we've got lots of connections with aged care because of our laundry, because we provide linen into the aged care industry. And there are lots of aged care from, like you said, IRT and Patrick Reed and Warrigal and Uniting and Presbyterian. They were all sort of screaming at us saying, look, can we get our hands on Sanitizer? And so Ming dropped a couple of IBCs up to Unanderra, and we started distributing out of Unanderra as well. And then that's sort of grown into North Nowra, and the quantities just seem to be, at one stage there, get larger and larger, with essential services coming in, fire, the ports, Blue Scope, because I guess we've got connections into a lot of those areas. I think at one stage there, Ming had toll, because I think they've got some connections through the ports and Port Botany, and he was getting the word out to many of his customers as well, and the people that he deals with, and so the network seemed to grow. So it's amazing to see how, I guess, the number of people that we're able to touch between yourself and Ming's contacts and our contacts as well. And it was really reasonably priced because there were a lot of people out there at one stage charging like $50 a litre and all this sort of stuff. And I think that was a key. And look, I take my hat off to Manildra, because they were very clear right from the word go that this was to be used and to assist essential services and the community and not-for-profits. The product was really was well priced and positioned, and I think that was a fantastic community gesture from Manildra to support the essential services and the community, and it's been well recognised as that, and people really have felt I guess blessed to make sure that they were able to get plenty of hand sanitizer at the right price and that it was available. And so I think we should thank Manildra for that graciously.
I know, and as you've said, we extended the network into Cogra to service southern Sydney, and into Maria to do the south coast, and that was by similar organisations as Flagstaff, and as a community-based business, this was right up Flagstaff's alley. So tell me a bit more about the Flagstaff Group.
Flagstaff's been operating since 1966, so we're 54 years old, and have been operating in the Shoalhaven nearly as long as that as well. In the Shoalhaven, we're the only employer of people with disabilities, or we're the largest employer of people with disabilities. We employ about 86 people with disabilities, and we're continuing to grow. We operate several different areas. We've got a commercial laundry. We operate in grounds maintenance. We do a lot of work for Blue Scope. We do work for Australian National, the railway people. So we're really about creating, our purpose is to create work skills and work and employment for people with disabilities, and that's our purpose, and that's what we really are about doing, is getting jobs that we can, I guess, deconstruct so that we can match skills with the person's ability, and we always need lots of different jobs to do that, because we've got lots of different abilities with our people that we employ.
I don't know. There's a question there from Grant about how has COVID actually affected the operations of Flagstaff?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, actually. And I think at one stage there, I was it put a lot of pressure on us. Right from get-go, we made the decision to stay open. So we never were going to close, because employing a person with a disability goes a bit further than just employing that person with a disability. It allows the parents and the carers, it gives them the ability to either go to work or have some space in their life as well. So we thought that if we were to close down, then what it would mean is that parents and carers who relied on us for work and for support of a person with disability, that would put pressure on them to either not have employment or go to work. And the other thing was that our people really need routine, and if we were to cut that routine and tell people to go home or not have work in their life, then that would be a massive disruption to them. So in choosing to do that, it really did put a lot of pressure on us to make sure that we followed all the protocols. And I'm really pleased to say that our employees, our people with disabilities, really picked up on the protocols, and we have maintaining social distance, hand washing. We had a couple of curly things at start. We started to we split all of our morning teas, all of our breaks. We were lucky enough to have a fair amount of space available to us, so we split people into smaller groups and moved them around lunchtimes. And that gave us a few issues, because many of our people make close friends and relationships, and work's more about having a relationship and a friendship and a social gathering as well as work. And so when we split up morning teas and lunch times, sometimes we split the people and they wanted to be together, and so it took us a week or two to make sure that Freddie was with Joan and Joanne was with John and that sort of thing. But once we got over that, all of our people really did comply, and were very diligent in making sure that we did follow the social protocols. And I think that's paid off for us, because we've continuing to I guess support our parents and our carers, and our employees and our staff, and our staff actually were excellent in their support of us staying open. And I guess the other thing from another decision was a lot of what we do, I don't know whether we couldn't get an answer on this one, but I classed it as essential services anyway, because our recycling, we pick up cardboard from Woolies and Coles, and that just went through the roof at one stage with all the pressure on toilet paper and you name it, whatever they were unloading, but created cardboard, and our linen, which goes into aged care. So we had a lot of our aged care customers relying on us to maintain their linen supplies, and then our food. So we actually had a record for April we dispatched over 104,000 meals. All through the state, we're doing home deliveries down into Bay and Basin, Sanctuary Point, down as far as Bateman's Bay. We took on IRT, and Patrick Reed approached us and said, can we deliver meals down to Bega for their in-home care participants in aged care. So we took that on as well. So yeah, COVID really has been thrown us around, but we've certainly been able to address that, and our staff and our participants have been fantastic in taking on the protocols and maintain that.
Oh no. So Ming, back to you. So the network grew, and at one stage there, your founder, Dick Honan, gave me a ring and kept urging me to keep going with my involvement in the thing and push the sanitizer down into the bushfire areas and those sorts of things. So where's this led the Manildra Group in the hand sanitizer business?
Well, it's certainly opened our eyes to a different market and I guess it's certainly quietened down in the last couple of months. So it's back to a more normal area, and we'll continue to sort of dabble in it. We during that time when Dick was ringing Greg, Dick was keen to donate product out in the community, and I think in this local area we would have donated of the order of 20,000 litres from Moruya to Sydney, and then out to the west there was some medical associations out in Western New South Wales, plus a lot of ethanol we donated through to the state governments around the country.
So have you lifted your production? Because I know in the early days you were mixing in small quantities, and
our production of hand sanitizers is currently pretty low, so we're only just mixing up the odd IBC here and there. I don't know how John's going, but we've seen the market has really there's plenty of hand sanitizer out there at the moment, so we're ready to respond. But it's fairly quiet at the moment.
Yeah, John, you might want to jump in there and just make a comment on how that whole hand sanitizer market's sort of tapering off.
Yeah, well, a bit like Ming said, I'm just going to say we're with 5,000 litres per day minimum. It's now that per week. So it's obviously clear that people aren't, one, they've obviously stopped, but two, there just doesn't seem to be the take up anymore. People are not taking it probably quite as seriously when you reflect on Victoria now, as we all should. So, we ramped up our capacity as well to take a lot of ethanol from the Manildra Group, and never had so many conversations with Ming and with Dick himself over the whole matter. But again, we focused on healthcare, local services first, and then obviously businesses trying to get re-established and so on. But yeah, it certainly dropped off. There's also just been an absolute flood of product into the supermarkets. It's all imported, so we're sort of back to where we were. China actually came back on board quite quickly after, in the end of March, mid-April, and so they started, really releasing cheap product into our market, and tried to release a lot of cheap ethanol into the market as well. But hopefully, lots of people resisted that. So we just sort of got a status quo. We're still selling quite reasonable volumes, but obviously nowhere where we were 2 months ago. So yeah.
Yep. Righto. So I'd like to sort of draw the thing to a close here, and thank both of you for telling this wonderful story, and how collaboration by local businesses and networking, that networking and innovation, something that we know brings the entrepreneurship in regional areas together, because we are all locals, we know each other, and that's the strength of operating in a regional area. So over the next, I'd like to thank both Ming and Roy, and lastly for John to jump in with a couple of other comments. It is a good story. I have spoken to this story with state government and a few other people over the last few months, because it was one of the reactions to the COVID that was positive, innovative, and grew out of a regional centre, which the government like to promote. So what I intend to do probably over the next coming series of stories in the Breakfast Bite series is to bring you more stories like this about local businesses, how they are growing, how they are expanding, a lot of them into export. Yes, one question I didn't ask you, Ming, if you might like to make this comment, of the product produced at the Manildra plant at Bhama Dairy or across the group, how much of that is exported?
That's a good question. As a percentage, it'd be over half of what we do would be exported, probably 2/3, 3/4. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
not
just
yeah
across the group. So it's not
and across all of our product. Gluten is predominantly exported. We export a lot of ethanol as drinking grade ethanol, and then the starch and stock feed. We're exporting those as well.
Yeah. So it's that plant at Bhama Dairy is not only vital for the Shoalhaven area but also for the nation. So Grant, have you got any further questions?
I have, Greg, if you don't.
Jump in.
To ask all our leaders that are there, Ming and Roy and John, where they see their business going now in the future.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Firstly? Look, there's no doubt we're continuing to grow, and we've just opened another site just around the corner from John, actually, down in Norfolk at South Nowra, and we're operating North Nowra and South Nowra. Our biggest impediment, and I see us coming out of COVID really strongly. We're getting a lot of inquiries. We're sort of been able to innovate. It's forced us to innovate into new areas. But our biggest impediment at the moment is recruitment. I've got 10 jobs going and I can't get anybody to apply for them. And I've had people on ABC radio recently, and I think we've got an article in the Mercury. I've got WIN happening. We're just finding JobKeeper and JobSeeker is working against us to recruit people. We just don't see that we're getting people coming to us and applying for the jobs we've got. And so I think our major impediment, I'm positive about growth and employment for the future and coming out of COVID. I'm trying to get ready for our laundry to certainly grow as we loosen up our caravan parks and accommodation. But I just finding it difficult to recruit people. But I'd be interested to hear what other people think about that as well.
Yeah, we've been having the same issue, Roy. We advertised 4 positions the other day, and we only got about 12 suitable applicants. We're finding the same sort of issue. Just getting people, I think, now back to work is proving to be difficult because the job keeper or allowances are quite reasonable now. So it's certainly been an impact on us because we lifted our employment numbers. We went from 55 to 80 in 2 to 3 weeks. A lot of those, interestingly, were returnees. Lots of young youth that had worked with us in the past and came back from uni and left uni, or came back from the city to live with mum and dad or whatever. But since then, they've all moved on, and we're finding it the same sort of issues, Roy. Exactly, just getting people to even apply at the moment. I know there's also other uncertainties in the marketplace and the way people feel. But we're trying to actually make sure we have more full-time jobs instead of a larger casual pool like we used to have, to give people that certainty in their work moving forward, which we think is important in the current environment. So same type of issues, yeah.
Very good. Right, I'm conscious of the time. We try and finish this by about 8:15. So I don't think I've scanned the questions, Grant. I think we've covered most of them through the meeting. So the next breakfast bite will be in 2 weeks' time, on the 23rd of July. And the topic that I've chosen for that, I've adjusted, not an industry one, this is really a planning one, is what would you like to have? Would you like to have a say in what Shoalhaven is like in 2040? Is the topic. As business operators and professional staff, you are wanting a bright, vibrant future for the Shoalhaven. What will it look like in 20 years' time?
You should be asking what people are prepared to pay to buy that vision.
Yeah, well, maybe that's how the discussion might go as well.
I'm hoping to be retired.
Yeah, 2040 I might be pushing up daisies.
Yeah, what will be what will the economy be like, and what will changes we may have to make to achieve that? So next time I will interview Matthew Rose and Christy O'Sullivan from the strategic planning section of council, who have been responsible for producing council's document on local strategic planning statement. So it's a forward-looking paper that all local governments have had to do, and we'll discuss that at the next breakfast bite. Document is currently on exhibition, and submissions close at the end of the month, so we'll try and stimulate a few people to go out and read it as well. So I thank you all for your cooperation. Again, I'd like to thank Ming and Roy for coming along. This is something that we do every fortnight and have different topics, so thank you very much for your attendance and for everybody else, and goodbye.
Can I just add an SPBA notice, if that's okay?
Yep.
Catherine has asked all members if they could please email a photo and some words on their business to put up on the website for members page. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the new SPBA website, but it looks sensational. So if you get a chance to have a look and contribute,